Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. At least 16 people were killed at a tavern at the Nomzamo informal settlement in Soweto, while 2 others were killed in Gauteng and 4 shot and killed at Sweetwaters in KwaZulu-Natal. The motives of the shootings are still unknown, as KwaZulu-Natal's also released from prison 2 suspects yesterday. Let's unpack this further with Dr. Oscar van Heerden, who is a scholar of international relations, focusing on international political economy with an emphasis on Africa. He joins us on the line. Also joining us is Vearey, who is from Gun Free SA, a strategic advisor there. He is also the former head of the Western Cape Police Anti-Gang Unit. A very good evening to you both, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time. Perhaps let me point this question to Dr. van Heerden. At least 4 establishments have been the target of mass shootings since last Friday. According to the IEP's latest Global Peace Index, which was published at the end of June this year, South Africa ranks among the worst of 25 countries in the world when it comes to safety and security. Is this expected?
Who are you asking, Paul?
I'm starting with you, Dr. van Heerden, just to get a sense of whether this comes as a surprise at all.
Well, obviously it is quite disturbing when we get those kinds of statistics. But I do want to say, Paul, as a third world country such as South Africa, we are very good at keeping statistical information. Because we have proper infrastructures, we have police stations, we have crime statistics. We, for example, unlike many countries, we will be able to tell you how many newborn babies were born yesterday, or today for that matter, because we have the infrastructure. And I'm raising this simply to illustrate that because we are able to provide that kind of data, we are always, in most cases, we are seen as the worst in everything. If we look at, for example, COVID infections or HIV/AIDS infections, or we look at mother-to-child transmissions, whatever the statistic is, we are able as South Africa to provide up-to-date, relevant statistical data. Yeah. To say this is what has happened. And in this particular case, I fear it's more of the same. Because we are able to provide up-to-date data, we are seen as the worst amongst 25 countries.
And perhaps just bringing you in, Mr. Vearey, we have seen the shootings taking place. Over 20 people have been killed in separate shootings in South Africa, and guns were used. I mean, what's your reaction to that? Because the weapons that were used were guns. And listening into what Police Minister Begitele had to say about around 137 empty AK-47 cartridges, it speaks to a really frightening situation.
I think firstly, in terms of gun violence, in general, I'll come to the specific incident now. The Minister of Police's report on firearms control and management in South Africa of 2016, very shocking admission. And I want to quote, it said, loss of firearms from civilians and state institutions is the most significant source of illegal firearms in South Africa. Now, in the particular incident, fully automatic firearms were used. In that case, there's reference to AK-47s. But by and large, those type of incidents where those type of weaponry is used are outlier incidents that usually involves organized criminal gangs, and we've seen such weaponry used also with cash and transfer. But the majority of our weapons comes from civilians who were licensed holders before. So, and that accounts for most of our murders and attempted murders with firearms in this country. So that's the first thing that we need to examine. I want to mention another example. You know, in the 2019-2020 financial year, 8,680 firearms were lost. The civilians who lost firearms amounted to 8,007. And the SAP 637 and other government departments the rest. But just look at that shocking statistic of civilian losses there.
Yeah.
And the pattern hasn't changed. Now what that points to us, and at least we now have the opportunity to re-look at our firearm legislation with a new bill, is that we are unable to manage and control the flow from the legal route to the illegal route in our country. That's what it tells us. Whatever we're doing needs to be improved in those areas. And that is what our government is doing at the moment. It is inviting inputs on the bill precisely for that reason. So I think that is just to scope the problem for you. That is the extent of it. So many more of our murders, especially 99% of our murders that we have, are committed by guns that were once legal firearms and small arms in the hands of civilians. And that is the first part of our challenge. The other part of our challenge is, if one looks at the way these weapons are lost, it points to the need for proper control in the hands of the license holder. Because some of them are stolen from safes, some of them are negligently lost, and shockingly, some of them are lost in public spaces. And some of us, when they are drawn to deal with a particular crime, often involve a gross incompetency displayed in the handling of that firearm that results in its loss. Now, if we recognize that, then we need to re-examine how easy it's able to obtain a license in this country for self-defense. The first thing is, all it requires is a competency test, a police check, and you're home and dry, basically. That is not sufficient to measure a person's competency. We cannot depend on how well you shot in a competency test 25 years ago to accept that you will remain at that standard year after year. Secondly, it requires a psychological type of competency. We have high rates of domestic violence where firearms are used as a threat and sometimes as an actual thing. That points to something. That perhaps the person, while they might have passed a competency test by shooting at a paper target or passed a criminal check.
Perhaps, I'd like for us to hold that thought when it comes to the psychological impact. I'd like to come to Dr. van Heerden, perhaps expanding on the contributing factors to South Africa's reputation as being one of the unsafest countries in the world. I mean, reasons like the low levels of safety and the high levels of violent crime, high levels of violent demonstrations and murder have been singled out as some of those factors that are adding on to a really volatile situation. With these revelations, where does it place South Africa when compared to other parts of the continent, like, for instance, the Central African Republic, where, matters like aggravated robberies and assaults and murder are quite common?
No. Well, the truth is, Mpo, that we are simply off the charts. Whichever measure you are applying, South Africa is off the charts. Our criminality and our violent crime is of such a nature that we compare favorably to conflict areas, to war-torn areas. Whether it is in the Middle East, whether it is in the Ukraine, for example, etc. That is how bad the situation is in South Africa. Our murder rate, our violent crime is at that level where we favorably compare to areas where there is active conflict, whether it's in Central Republic of Africa, whether it is in other parts of the world. And this is what is the most concerning. And dare I say that we have seen over time that our South African police service is incompetent, is unable to get on top of the crime situation. When you look at the crime stats, it is quite clear that contact crime is on the rise. People feel unsafe. They don't feel that the South African police service is providing the necessary protection and safety. We've seen in recent days on social media that our own police service is being held at gunpoint, is being robbed by criminals. Police stations are being invaded. Arms are taken. Ammunition are taken. And so this all makes for a very bleak picture about the state of safety and security in South Africa.
Yeah, as Mr. Vearey was speaking, he made mention of the psychological and the competency that one needs to have to acquire firearms, saying that it's really not as intricate as it should be. Some critics have even warned that there's a silent domestic violence epidemic running rampant across the African continent. I mean, that speaks to something that is of high concern.
Absolutely, absolutely. GBV, gender-based violence, is the number one enemy in South Africa. Rape is, I don't want to sound and repeat words like off the charts. It is simply, the levels are simply staggering, unacceptable. Whether it is urban or rural areas in South Africa, rape is it's just unacceptable. Yeah. The level of rape, the violation, the violence meted out against women and girl children in our country is phenomenal. And yet the police and all the specialized units, all the campaigns that is coming from the presidency are coming to naught because we are simply not making any dent. We are not able to effectively deal with gender-based violence in all its forms. And this is a serious, serious crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there for now. Let me thank you both for your time and contribution on this show. And, of course, that was international relations expert Dr. Oscar van Heerden and Gun-Free SA strategic advisor Jeremy Vearey speaking about the serious impact of matters like the deadly tavern shootings and how they really fare when it comes to issues of gun safety and control.